Hello, and welcome to a special episode of the Atheist Vanguard. I'm Jamie Boone, and sitting to my right, regular viewers will recognize Derek Hawke, and sitting to my left, irregular viewers will recognize Aron. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. And, well, I guess for the viewers at home, the few that are unfamiliar with your work, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
I'm a regional director of American Atheists, and I tend to do a lot of protests. Last night we were in San Antonio protesting the children in cages in the concentration camps. And the week before that, we were in Kentucky protesting Noah's Ark again for the fourth year in a row. The weekend before that, I was protesting in NIFB Church that advocates stoning children as well as killing homosexuals. And they made fun of me, by the way. They criticized me for being dressed as a queer, was the word that the pastor used, because I was wearing a kilt. Okay. That actually was one of my questions, because they have this, like, don't wear women's clothing thing, which is like, what do they think of kilts? But evidently, yeah, all people that have ever worn a kilt. Wow. Yeah. And yeah, a Scotsman told me the joke about, we kilt the last guy that called us a skirt. Yeah, and then tomorrow I will be in Fort Worth, downtown at the Botanical Gardens, talking about the In No God We Trust banner project, which what they've done is they legally arranged to have all these big banners that says In No God We Trust, and they put them up on downtown Main Street, Fort Worth, which is a hugely conservative, very religious area. If you've ever attended the Pride Parade in both cities, Dallas and Fort Worth, for comparison, Dallas is a fun time, everybody's happy and everything, and in Fort Worth it's just hate. So they're very conservative, very backward. So to see In No God We Trust all over downtown Fort Worth is hilarious. And of course, I got hundreds of complaints. Yeah, the mayor, to her credit, said that she was appalled when she saw the message, and she did not agree with it, but she had to abide by free speech, which is not technically correct. It's freedom of religion, right? Not just free speech. Right. But the fact that she's aware that there is another amendment ahead of that second one is progress.
It's like the second law of thermodynamics. It's sort of like, well, tell me how many there are and what the first one is and about thermodynamics.
Now, we heard that they were vandalized. How many were vandalized?
Well, I don't know that for sure. I'm only aware. I was told that there was two. I've seen pictures of two that were together, so it might be the same two.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so only two. I suppose that's pretty good.
Well, that's all I can verify. But over 100 complaints to the mayor in the first few hours.
Well, it's, like you said, a very conservative area, but
very tolerant, very Christian love. Yeah, turn the other cheek.
I'm sure they were very politely worded.
Yeah, welcome your neighbor as one that was native born. All that,
all that good stuff about banners. Well, welcome. You actually get to be the special guest on the final installment of our breaking down of a phone interview that our producer got with Pastor Tommy McMurtry. So before we get to the first clip we have, I'm going to read a statement from our producer, a kind of disclaimer. I, Ben Esteville, by interviewing a pastor of the NIFB movement, in no way intend to endorse the views or values expressed in the interview. My intent for this interview is to gather the statements and views of Pastor McMurtry and the NIFB movement so that they can be discussed and responded to. I believe the best way to achieve real change is through civil conversation. We should combat ideas, not people. And with that, let's roll the first clip.
You don't think some of these things are choices. Some of them are, some of them maybe not, if you have a medical condition. Do you think with all of the subjects we've spoken about, there's anything that springs from a dark demonic possession? I know the Bible is very clear and very specific about a variety of possessions that have happened. Now, do you think that could account for anything we've been talking about?
Yeah, I mean, and that's hard to say for sure because, the Bible says from within the heart come adulteries and fornications and things like that, the things that defile a man. So, man is capable of some pretty bad things on his own. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, there are satanic forces that are at work that I think take part in that. I definitely believe that, there is demonic activity involved, but is it like a full-blown demon possession, stuff like that? I couldn't say that for sure. I think man is capable of some pretty nasty stuff on his own. Now, that doesn't mean I don't believe in demon possession. I do believe in demon possession. It's definitely a real thing. It definitely plays a part in it. I would like to think that any man who would ever molest a child is demon possessed. Just as I like to think every man who is attracted to another man is demon possessed. I have no doubt demonic forces are at work when it comes to homosexuality and everything, but I wouldn't go as far as blaming demons on a homo. Because one thing, too...
When do we get to cut this to
in the Bible, we see Jesus casting devils out of people and then them wanting to be followers of Christ. Okay? Mm-hmm. The thing when it comes to homos, these are people that are just reprobate and rejected. So it's not like you're just going to cast a demon out of them and then they're going to be fine. Because that's what we would see in the Bible. So I think most of the time with stuff like that, I think it's just man being wicked. I think the demonic possession is probably pretty rare for the most part.
So rare as to never have existed ever at any time at all. Because there's no such things as demons, period. And there's no satanic forces. Not one. There's not a satanic anything really, but there certainly isn't a force. Not anything that's actually real. Nothing real about Satan. There are, in any number of population, you're going to have a sub percentage of those that are homosexual, especially in a hugely breeding population. You're going to have a lot more that are homosexual. This is like a natural tendency of the population. It's a trait of the population. Some would even call, some want to look at the way that nature guides itself in some things. And if you have an overpopulated area, well, then you would be welcoming of the homosexual percentage of that population because they don't breed as much.
And they're fabulous.
At least in this species. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that, and people are capable of all kinds of horrible, atrocious things, like making up demons and blaming magic for shit that people do, and then blaming other people's tendencies or tastes or whatever on them being reprobates. Well, just because you listen to country music, I don't think you're evil. So you may have a different set of tastes. And maybe that makes you objectively bad if you hate metal. I don't know, but I mean, otherwise.
I think that's a good point. As far as this is a taste that has nothing to do with you, why are you up in arms about it, and why do you think there should be public stonings?
And why is it that the leaders of all of these family organizations, right, the ones that hate gays the most, why are they the ones always caught doing coke off of off some twink's ass? What's up with that, right? I was looking at when I was a little kid. I remember looking at it as in a stark contrast. When you try to surround yourself with darkness, and then your light shows, or you try to go to reverse. The other extreme is going to be just as obvious. So you try to be like the most goody two shoes person. You're concealing something, and it's going to get real obvious when the light goes off.
What makes me sad and I'm really angry is that this is the philosophy that's being taught to these children, because we know that in these congregations, in these groups of people, there are children who are gay, trans, or whatever, and they are being taught this philosophy. Can you imagine being taught by your parents or people that you held in authority and respected that these feelings that you are feeling are coming from possibly a demon that is indwelling in you?
Well, so he was saying that it's not demon possession; it's just demonic forces.
Well, he said it was rare.
Well, he said demonic possession is rare. So this is sort of my question: is that
there were gay demons when I grew up,
and well,
they were great. They were flamboyant little hey. I'm just talking from personal experience. With gay demons.
Well, so this is sort of my confusion with their forming the adjective from the noun. Does demonic not mean relating to a demon? Like, does satanic not mean relating to Satan?
Demons mean demons when it doesn't mean demons. So
that's not an explanation.
It is not. It is not. It's sometimes it's a devil, sometimes it's the choices you make, sometimes it's demon influence. I don't know.
It's like the metaphorical parts of the Bible are not the literal parts of the Bible.
Correct.
There's the full explanation.
Well, that's just ugh. I'm always right, except for those rare times where I happen to be wrong. But it's still true that I'm always right. That's not how the words you're saying work.
When you do evil things, it's because you're rejecting God, or it's because of demon influence.
Do you ever have one of these, weirdos in this studio talking to you?
Besides me,
I think he means a pastor from the NIFB church or something like that. We haven't had a pastor,
because I think that would be a bucket of chuckles. It would be just so much fun. Like the guy that was costing me out in front of his church, he's angry. Why are you picking on us? And he's calling us immoral. Everything he's teaching is objectively immoral. I'm teaching the immoral lesson about what if you don't force your kid to a label? What if it doesn't matter which gender the child either identifies with or is attracted to? What if that pressure is just not even there because it's not even a thing? Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, what if we just considered everybody potentially bisexual, because everybody is potentially, to a degree at least, bisexual, right? If we just assume that of everybody, then what fucking difference does it make? Right? Which one you happen to lean toward more? So what? Why is this such an issue?
Why are we such busybodies about other people's sex lives?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that is basically the question as far as why do you care? And I mean, the answer is that the King James 1611 version of the Bible and doctrine, et cetera, et cetera. I almost
the one that says that the Earth is a flat disk standing on columns that's covered by a giant solid crystal dome, which is the sky that has the sun and the moon that are both the same size, that are both bigger, including the moon. The moon is bigger than all the stars, and all of them are contained within the concavity of the flat world dome. That one?
Yes, I believe that is the book that he is referring to. Yes. The firmament, which contains the rain as well, I believe.
Oh, no, the rain is above the firmament, because that's in the waters above the firmament. That's why there's windows in the firmament to let the rain in.
Like drips?
And then fountains. To both drain it out and flood it in if you want to reverse the valve.
God was a witty little...
Seems like it's inefficient. Like you could just have gravity and four fundamental forces and rather than all of this extra valve pumping through a snow
relatively
globe.
Simple chemical situation instead of all this contrivances to pump water in and out of space, because space is full of water somehow.
Yeah.
But not stars. Stars are all inside the firmament. And they move around and they have personalities, and they can come down to the earth and fight you if you piss them off.
That part I had either forgotten or not learned, actually. I didn't realize that the stars had personalities. I'll have to take up stargazing.
If I remember correctly, there's a passage, I think it's in Daniel, where 3 stars come down to earth to do battle with a mortal.
Who won?
Yeah.
Which
my memory of this is a little. I don't remember, honestly. I would have to go back and look.
I want to see that movie.
Which 3 stars? Well, I'm sure one of them is Kevin Bacon. I'm not sure about that.
Well, they seem to be putting Jennifer Lawrence and everything.
One of them had to be in The Rock. If it was made in the last 10 years,
it has to be The Rock. Yeah.
Okay, I am there.
The Rock is the mortal that has to fight them, depending on.
Because he's in everything.
All right, sell me tickets to that movie.
Yeah, I was going to say. So join us for our next episode, a movie that we've shot starring The Rock, where he fights angels.
Jennifer Lawrence.
No, stars.
Or sorry, stars, not angels.
Jennifer Lawrence.
The Rock versus Jennifer Lawrence.
I'm not sure how that's going to turn out for Jennifer Lawrence.
That's the Hunger Games Part 4.
He could use Jennifer, grab her by the ankles and use her to beat up the other 2.
Go Katniss, go.
I'm having too much fun with this already.
Well, hey, is there such a thing as too much fun?
Yeah.
Probably according to the NIFB. But
this is the experience of me and Jamie.
Yeah. we're getting a little loose here. It is the last episode. Yeah. So here, actually getting back to what he actually said in the clip was, he begins with, it's hard to say for sure, which...
Yeah, because if you're going to say for sure, it means you've got data to show that there's there's some truth to what you're saying. And since absolutely everything you believe is made up hogwash, and you simply refuse to accept all the different ways and all the different times it has been proven wrong, then you can't say for sure because you don't know, and you just believe. You're pretending. It's make-believe. That's what all of it is.
Make-believe. Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of religion. That's why they want to promote prayer.
It's true.
Because if you talk to something as if it's there, you can talk to any imaginary thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can talk to the ghosts of your dead relatives, to your spirit animal. You can talk to extraterrestrials telepathically. You know, you can talk to a soccer ball with a bloody handprint in it. Eventually, the imaginary being will start talking back if you keep talking to it. Mm-hmm. So that's why they want to promote prayer, because it creates a self-satisfying delusion that you've bought into your own delusion, right? Mm-hmm. So the way, if you don't believe Jesus exists, why don't you pray to him until he answers you?
Because I don't think he exists.
But if you start praying to Jesus and you dedicate yourself, do like they say, fast for a week, and go without water or whatever. Put yourself go out into the desert and just pray to Jesus for a solid week constantly. If you keep talking to an imaginary being as if it's real, it's going to start listening.
Particularly if there's no one else there and you're really dehydrated.
Well, I was just having a conversation with our friend V, our new co-host off of Secular Sexuality.
Yeah.
And she was asking, what's the difference between a prayer that is answered and a prayer that is not as answered? And I was like, there is no difference, because I can make that prayer be answered in some way, whether it's God made it come true, or God has said no and I am not worthy of it, or he moves in mysterious ways.
I had a prayer answered.
Mm.
Yep.
Was it to Danny DeVito or is it Joe Pesci?
Joe Pesci.
Sorry.
But no, it wasn't. I was 12 years old. I was reading the Bible, and I realized that this is not the word of God. This is not the word of a divine wisdom. This is not a supreme wisdom. This is not even a superior. This is the words of inferior men who obviously didn't know what they were talking about. And so after I famously threw it across the room in disgust, I offered my prayer, just like it says in Matthew, where you're supposed to pray in the privacy of your own room and not be like the hypocrites, where you pray out where they can see you. And I demanded that God explain why he's being blamed for all this atrocious, insidious, evil idiocy in the Bible. Now, two explanations possible. He either has to justify all that inhuman terror and stupidity, mm-hmm. which is impossible, or he could just let me know that the Bible got him all wrong. And that prayer was answered. Because over the course of the entirety of the rest of my life, I've seen that the Bible was written by ignorant and bigoted, superstitious, primitive savages who obviously had no idea what they were talking about and were only pretending to speak for God.
I remember the last prayer that I can't believe I'm saying this. I got the last whooping of my childhood because of this prayer, because my dad said that he wanted to pray for rain for his garden. I said I was going to cancel out his prayer and pray for sunshine. He whooped the shit out of me.
I wonder if they could have like competing prayer circles. When you go to a football game, can you have the opposing teams have their opposing pastors come and pray like at each other or against each other? And that can decide the game right there.
Yeah.
I want to be a praying troll. If you pray something, I'm going to pray for the exact opposite.
You have to believe in a higher power that answers prayer.
So I saw a cartoon like that where there was like a Christian kid is praying to win this conflict, and this Indian kid, Hindu kid is praying for the very opposite. And then you see Jesus and Krishna, or Jesus and who was the other one? I forget.
Shiva, Ganesh.
Jesus and Ganesh, who's much more recognizable than even Shiva, are wrestling over to see which kid gets their prayer answered.
There was actually a story about that where there was I think it was a coven of witches or people that were getting together to hex the president, and then there was a call for a prayer circle to pray to protect him from the hex. And this was reported in the news because that is the world that we live in.
And does that disturb you?
Yeah, I pray. When I saw the movie Titanic, I prayed for that iceberg not to hit that boat, but that movie never ended any different.
I mean, that would have been a pretty good miracle, actually.
I know.
If it was just like footage that was never filmed that appeared on screen for you right there.
Yeah, poor Leonardo, always drowned at the end and never answered my prayer.
Why does that remind me of Rocky Horror? Wait, I can explain. You better be good. I got you killed last week.
Don't dream it, be it.
Yeah. All right. I think we've hit initially and then had some fun on the points raised in that clip, unless I've missed something about demons.
No, well, the one thing that always hits me is that if there's no truth to what you're saying, why would you let yourself believe it, much less make yourself believe it? Show me the truth of it. Nothing. They've never got, oh, I've got evidence. It's just that you're closed-minded and you want scientific evidence. Well, why not, subjective impressions and changed lives and other such bullshit that doesn't actually count as evidence? Why don't you accept that?
Well, because it is contradictory. Sorry, I have this bad habit on these shows of answering rhetorical questions.
I have a bad habit of asking them.
Yeah, it's a good habit if they're well formed.
They're not.
Oh, well, then we'll keep bouncing these back and forth off each other. But I mean, you know why we don't do that as evidence, because it's unreliable.
Well, the topic of demons, for particularly in the Christian religion, is a wonderful topic that they love to lie about. I'm going to tell you a real quick story. This is kind of related, but it has to do with demons. When I went to the church, we had the preacher basically, and as a child, we're just standing here in awe. But now, and I'm actually angry at this. This man was lying to us. He talked
and that
about
bothers you.
What's that?
And that bothers you, because I've had Christians tell me many, many times, why is that a problem? What's wrong with lying? Seriously,
to describe the truth. Wow,
they're defending their belief system.
Yep.
So what's wrong? Why does it have to be true before I believe it? And why does it matter if somebody lies?
Well,
because it does if you want to believe things that are true.
So in this man's fiction, he talks about going to a mental institution and to go preach to the mentally ill. And he tells us that when he was there, the people that were inmates started banging on the wall saying, "Look at him. He's covered in blood, the blood of Christ." And people were just eating it up. And now as an adult, even as a kid, I'm like, that did not happen.
So I remember asking my family, what is Satan's motivation? Which was a question nobody was ever prepared to answer. But what is it that he does and why? Right? Well, Satan is trying to, what is it? He's in a war with God.
Mm-hmm.
So Satan
for souls.
So Satan is a created being of limited power. And surely he knows that.
Right. Well, he already knows what's going to happen. Yeah. He knows the end.
Can you imagine being in a war with your Warcraft avatar? He thinks he's going to beat you. You could pull the plug on the whole set, but he thinks he's going to beat you. So this is how I saw how unrealistic I saw that. We're not talking about two equal powers, right?
Yeah.
And as other people have said, if anything's worse than having an imaginary friend, it's having an imaginary enemy.
Yep. Well, see, I relate it to comic books. I really do.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
It does. The reason being is that, first of all, you've seen that they've had to reboot their universes several times. And the reason why, it's a really interesting document. The reason why is that the superheroes or the good guys were becoming too boring. And so they had to take away their power and reduce them to normal and make the villain more interesting. And this is what you see with religions is that people, even when I was a Christian, I was fascinated with demonology and the whole interaction and just all that. You have to make your story is only as good as your villain. And as we see through history, Satan has become more interesting, more powerful, more
existent.
Yep.
Well, it's at least sexier. But I mean, what is it what Satan does? I mean, does Satan, as so many people have the concept for whatever reason, because I notice that Christians kind of like make up their mythology. It's not actually out of Scripture. It's out of like Dante's Inferno and other things that they cobble together. Yep. It's not actually in the book, but they just make the stuff up. Like nowhere does the Bible say that Satan was the serpent. They just believe that anyway. Right?
Nowhere does it say that he goes and travels back in time and buries bones.
Or does anything other than what is literally described as doing in the book, or that he's stealing souls.
Well, the worst thing that he ever did was try to reason with Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah, he was tempting him to
In a way, now think about it. If Jesus actually believed what he said about himself in the story, then everything that Satan had said to him to try to negotiate with him or tempt him is ludicrous. Mm-hmm. So obviously that story is, even if the characters were real, that story would still be made up.
Right.
There's no possible truth to any of that. So what is it that Satan wants or does, or what is his motivation? If he gathers souls, right, enough, how does Satan win a soul? Do you promise it to him? Is that what happens, or
I think
do you lose it by some other means?
I think you sign a contract with him because
in blood.
But nobody does that.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about what Satan does, and you are, a rural farmer from hundreds of years ago, he's the person that shows up with contracts and nice clothes to try and take your stuff and your soul, so you shouldn't trust him.
I had a friend
that you want.
I had a friend in the 80s who was very much into death metal. His name was Morbid.
Good name.
And instead of lending people money, Morbid would have them sign a contract where he would buy their soul for $20. And it was surprising how many people would not sell their soul for the $20 that he's asking. But he has a stack of paper where he owns all these people's souls, $20 each.
How much did he make?
That's pretty cheap.
I have no idea.
I was going to say, yeah.
But I mean, I sold him my soul for a pack of cigarettes.
I wonder.
A grand.
Generic.
Wow. You
didn't I think they were called Doral.
You didn't think a contract for your soul was worth more than that?
Of course not. It's a soul. It's not a thing.
Well, no. But you gave him a contract for it. Now you're a professional atheist. That contract is worth something.
Well, the beauty of it
has your signature on it as well.
The number of people that would come and pay him back to get their soul back. And I just never bothered because obviously I never lost anything. What the hell? I'll go sell my soul again.
You never gave your friend a pack of cigarettes after that? It seems a little.
Well, I might have given him smokes, but that's not the same thing.
Oh, okay. I was just sort of joking about no, I'm going to keep my cigarettes. Yeah, I feel like the atheist activists of the internet, at least, should start that as a swapping contracts for souls of how many, or
yeah, I would start with the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, well,
doesn't the PlayStation 4 and similar games to that already take your soul?
I don't know.
It certainly takes your spare time.
I don't know. I'm already dead inside.
Oh, well, that's not
I know. Puss in Boots sad face.
All right, so I think we've covered the first demon clip. Spoiler alert for the next one.
Do you have another one coming? Because I still have questions.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell Satan does? How do these souls work as currency?
Well, apparently Satan makes you gay.
Well, so it's demonic
that only accounts
forces,
for so much.
Yeah, but it's only demonic forces, but not even necessarily demons. I guess Satan is sort of like the commander-in-chief of demons and sets them forth to, I don't know. You're asking me to invent a mythology.
What does a demon do? What is their interest?
They possess people and
do what with them?
They come down to earth to, have a good time, and then sometimes they like soup, and sometimes they eat too much of it, and then
okay, one of the
green pea soup.
One of the points that I'm alluding to is when I was a child and I was asking these questions innocently, honestly, of my parents, I was realizing how they had never thought about these questions and did not want to.
Yep.
So what is heaven, for example? My grandmother told me literally that everybody has a mansion and there are streets of gold. Well, I don't know what the purpose of having gold streets is. That would sound slippery. But and what does it matter that everybody has a mansion? I'm happy with a moderate house as long as everybody's taken care of. Okay, good. But what's the purpose of being there? So we can't ever learn. We can't aspire. We can't raise to another level. We can't achieve anything better than we are. All we get to do is wrap our lips around the colon of the great God guy.
Mm-hmm. When I was
forever.
When I was a child, I was guilty. I felt guilty because I didn't want to go to heaven because it sounded boring.
Boring is the beginning. That's the first day.
Yeah.
It's
But I was being serious. This really bothered me. With the indoctrination, it really bothered me that because as a child, in my mind, it was sitting in a cloud just doing nothing. Oh, wait, except singing to God 24/7.
Yeah, what was the description of purgatory? Purgatory was supposed to be so bad. You're sitting in a waiting room waiting forever, right? Isn't that what heaven is? Well, exactly the same thing?
No, you're forced to sing to God his praise.
At least send me to hell where there's interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
And better music.
No one that I'm aware of has ever described like, okay, sure, you get a mansion, whatever you want, but also there's this infinite library where you can learn new things or
then you're achieving a new level. You're accomplishing something.
That's never in heaven. Why doesn't anyone put that there?
Do I get the angels as my maids to take care of my mansion?
I have no idea. I was sort of like, I don't really want to have to sweep a mansion. Is there dust in heaven? If I have a mansion.
So the best thing you can do in heaven is to like metal out and drag a hacksaw across your electric harp.
I don't know.
Everybody's thinking about that sound now. That would be metal. No.
A little bit, yeah. It's a statement. Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about that.
My heavy metal song would be "Warrior of God" with my metal harp.
Okay. All right. Let's go to let's roll the next clip.
So you don't think there are gay demons at work?
No, probably not. There could be. The Bible calls them devils. Mm-hmm. It calls them unclean spirits.
That's right.
And so I do think there's a role that they play.
I gotta jump in here.
How much they're involved?
Here, can we hold the clip for a second?
I really couldn't tell you that. The Bible is not real clear on that.
You'd think it would be if it was written by God.
I think you could say that if somebody told me, I think devils and demons are always involved in homosexual activity. Okay, fine, I give you that, but that doesn't take away the responsibility of that individual.
Yes, it would. If a person is forced to do something by at gunpoint or demon possession, that at very least mitigates their responsibility for the thing that they were doing because they were doing it under duress. Or with demon possession, there's no will being expressed by the... If we lived in a world where there were demons or whatever.
The other part of it is he says there are unclean spirits and what they mean by spirits. And it took me a while to figure this out, too. When they say the Spirit of God moved over the surface of the waters, they're obviously talking about the wind. Well, that's consistent throughout. In Ecclesiastes 3, 18 to 21, which I think is the only part of actual wisdom in the entirety of the Bible, it says, who knows whether the breath of the animal descends into the earth and the breath of the man arises into the... Because in another translation, breath becomes spirit. Spirit and breath are the same thing. When Jesus gives up the ghost is also when he breathed his last, depending on which translation you read. So they knew that you would die if you can't breathe, but they didn't know that air was particulate matter. They thought it was spirit. Mm-hmm. So the feeling of the wind is the feeling of God. That's why everything, clouds are associated with God. That's why dust devils are literal devils. Because you're little desert nomads and everything, and suddenly a devil appears literally out of nothing, throws all your shit around, and then evaporates into nothing, right? That's a supernatural thing. If you ever see one of those columns where you have a fire and then there's a vortex of the fire, that's an ifrit. That's where that idea came from. So all of this, why do we call the hard liquor spirits? Because you open the bottle, you see the evanescence, you can see it distorted. That's all. Everything that they believe about our having a soul is literally hot air. Mm-hmm. It's our breath. That's it. They didn't know what air is. So they invented this concept of a spirit. So when in the Middle Ages, when you had horribly unclean conditions and everybody getting sick, they get a case of the vapors. Well, what the hell is that? It's fucking vapors. It's because everything stinks. It's because there's bacteria and everything in the atmosphere. And they don't know that. Right? So smoke, the lamp, the genie that comes out of the lamp. Why do genies come out of rugs also is the other one. So that's where they made up the whole thing about us having a spirit we never had.
Yeah.
And that's where foul spirits, things that smell bad, come from.
Farts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there's that. Yeah. Well, actually, that's very interesting. And it also lets me sidle into, this is why I like empiricism instead of rationalism, because empiricism would demand that you test what a spirit is and attempt to learn what it is. And you also wouldn't label it a spirit first. You'd say, here's this phenomena of what, a dust devil, dust flying around and it throws my shit around and then it's gone. What is that? And you would try and do experiments and develop technology to do better experiments to learn what it was, and you'd learn that.
Now, wouldn't rationalism be empiricism, but also including the possibility of logic as a means of achieving an understanding?
So rationalism would be thinking about something and coming to a rational conclusion about what it is. So if you have only the evidence that, there are these, there is a phenomenon where if you're in the desert, there's this little dust vortex that you wouldn't have the word vortex. There's this dust thing that comes and fucks up your shit and then disappears. You would go, okay, well, why is it messing with my stuff? It must be something that, and you could extrapolate from there. I guess it goes beyond rationalism because it's.
Imagine how much our religions would have changed if some rational thinking guy sitting out in the desert sees a dust devil coming at him, realizes it's not a super strong dust devil, so it's probably safe to go play with it.
Those are called Australians.
I've seen kids drive their bicycles through dust devils.
Yep.
Just to get thrown around and everything, and they think that's a big giggle. Well, imagine if that had happened thousands of years ago. We have legends built about that shit now.
Well, look at the religions. Just imagine, this is what's happening here. You're worshiping a God who created an entity that is more powerful than you, that can dictate and control you and inflict all these trials on you, and you are powerless against it. Well, no, I take that back. If you're supposed to be able to mention the word Jesus, and that will dispel the spirits. But I don't know why they don't do that. They never do that in the movie.
Well, when you're opening up other topics, because how does God control everything? So God, the only way the only way God can control how you lost your keys or who won the big game. I mean, he's either got to take over people's minds, which it deprives us of our free will, but then he has prophecy, so that deprives us of our free will as well. And there's even things God can't do. God can't forgive us if we blaspheme the Holy Spirit, so even he doesn't have free will. But it gets worse than that. The only way that God could actually, cause you to lose your keys or cause you to find your keys without directing you or without taking over your mind and all like that is if he's the Rod Serling to the Twilight Zone that you're living in. He's sitting outside of the VHS that, he started before he plugged the tape in. He's still existing after he pulls the tape out. He was there beginning and end at all times. He's outside of time. He wrote the story. So you still don't have free will because there's no circumstance or condition in which you have free will, period. And the only way he controls everything is by having written your script, which many Calvinists believe anyway, that it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. I might be going to heaven, and any Christian might be going to hell because God has already pre-decided that, so it doesn't fucking matter.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm offended that you compared God to Rod Serling. Rod Serling had a sexy voice. I don't think God has a sexy voice.
I've never heard a voice.
I'm trying to imagine a God voice that wouldn't be sexy.
You will find that.
Just pick a voice, any voice.
You'll find that if you close your eyes and find yourself in the Twilight Zone.
What happens? You're talking to God comes to talk to you, and it's like this. I don't know.
Oh Lord, I think we might be.
I envision it as like a Fran Dresser.
Oh, forgive me, okay?
Oh Lord.
But you're right, it probably should be Jewish.
Prayer answered.
Oh my God.
So I want you to do this thing. I want you to build an ark.
We can do the Boston accent.
I was going to say, if it could be Christopher Walken's voice, that would be.
Or about Boston? Oh, gad, oh, gad, oh, gad.
I can't do Christopher Walken, but that would be a really chilling God voice.
Jesus. Although I think any voice telling you to die on a cross or whatever. Yeah, I hadn't thought about... because I knew that the word for soul came from like the word for breath and wind, but I hadn't extrapolated out for dust devils and these things. What do they think about fans?
And then the foul spirits come out the other side.
What?
That makes sense.
That actually adds to it. But what do they think about having a fan? Like you can hold a fan and create spirits And then if you create basically like the top of a windmill, but you turn it, and if you're a desert nomad and you got, you know, a crew, a crew to man that, you then get to add to your army, you know, squadrons that can summon evil dust devils and project them at your enemy.
Okay, now you're just being ridiculous.
Hey, look, all I'm saying is send me back in time and I could become a warlord if I wanted, I guess.
Well, if you went back in time, you would bury dinosaur bones.
Well, so now I'm Satan. Oh, yeah, that was the other thing he said. He's like, the Bible calls them devils. So what's special about the devil? Because if he even has the same name as all of the other ones.
So somehow Satan gets an award out of convincing people that God doesn't exist. So I had a guy angry at me because I didn't believe in the devil, and that meant that I was satanic, that I worshiped the devil I don't believe in. And I said, well, how is that? And I said, well, because God says, you read about that if you don't believe in the devil, which is in the Bible, then you don't believe in the Bible. And God says that you are either with me or you are against me. You are either part of the kingdom of the Lord or you were with my enemy. So in this convoluted way, then I worship that I belong to the devil, and that means that I worship the devil I don't believe in. I mean, so that's fascinating. I said, I don't believe in Daffy Duck either. Does that mean I worship him too?
My head hurts.
What did he say to that?
He said, I see your point. It was the only time I'd ever reached him. The other time was, he got angry with me because he thought I was a Mormon, and I looked kind of like I do now, just lots younger and sexier. But otherwise, I don't know how you could look at any part of this visage, even in my 20s, and think that's a Mormon there. No,
let alone a sexy Mormon.
Yeah, with a beard. Yeah.
He says, when you go to, I didn't have that yet. I was the clean shaven.
Did you have long hair?
I had very long hair. Yeah. At the time, I looked an awful lot like the lead singer of Skid Row or the bassist for Rat, something like that.
Okay, so that's
I looked like every hair band.
Yeah, that's sexy. I can see that.
So I was skinny. I wore a chainmail T-shirt. It was my heavy metal T-shirt because it was literally made of heavy metal. But anyway, this guy pushes me against the wall, cocks his fist up to punch me, and he says, when you go to the Mormon temple, you go to pray to Satan, don't you? And so many things are reeling in my head, like, yeah, you got me. We go to pray to Satan. And it was a huge conspiracy. 12 million of us. Nobody's admitted it because nobody ever threatened to punch one of us before. You know.
all the Mormon wars in Missouri and all of this. No one ever threatened to punch a Mormon.
Exactly. Well, what Protestant Christian even knows about the Mormon wars?
What non-Mormon knows about the Mormon wars?
Exactly. So when this guy got me against the wall, I said, I'm not a Mormon. And he got confused. And he said, well, what are you then? And I said, believe me, you don't want to know.
Oh, wow.
It was a long time before I was an atheist. At that time, I was a neo-pagan occultist.
I think you were correct. I don't think he wanted to know.
Yep.
So you were a Jedi.
Exactly, yes. I hadn't yet read the Tao Te Ching, but if I had read the Tao Te Ching, I'd never seen I identified with that philosophy, but I'd heard it before in Star Wars.
Yep.
So the only religious message that I ever heard that made sense to me was when Obi-Wan was describing the Force as an energy field created by all living things that surrounds us and penetrates us and binds the galaxy together. And I think it was the book that said you can control it to a point, but it also controls you, like controlling the waves of an ocean. And I'm like, that's beautiful. That's so Eastern.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I'm sure that thousands of atheists have been wanting to ask you. What color would your lightsaber be?
What color would your lightsaber be? Why not?
Never even gave it a thought. I don't think you can come up with gray.
I think, well, there are gray Force users, but yeah, that's one, I guess. It wouldn't be very bright.
My favorite color is kind of hematite or steel. But that's not a lightsaber, that's
Silver
a saber.
I tried, guys.
Hey, you got an answer.
I got an answer.
Silver.
Platinum.
Platinum. Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have on the gay demons at this point, but
you got to say it right, demons.
Why don't we go ahead and roll the next clip?
You think they're involved in some way? Do you think they're involved in the structure of the media? Because I know.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt there's dark forces at work there. I mean,
what the hell is that?
You know, the Bible says we wrestle not
Fox
against
News.
flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And I have no doubt. I think we'd be more likely to find demon-possessed people in Congress than we would at the Gay Pride Parade.
I'd agree with you
my
now.
opinion on it. I think you'd be more likely to find demon-possessed people in the news media than you would be in the child molester's basement. You know, I think they spend most of their time in the high places. And think about it. It's our stinking government that's enabling these monsters. So if a demon wants to do the most damage, you know, they're going to work on the people that are in the high places, in positions of authority. And so I said, if I was going to go looking for a demon to cast out of somebody, I wouldn't go to the Gay Pride Parade. I'd probably go to Washington, D.C.
So
the demon wants to do damage. Why? We're getting back to the motivations again.
because it's the opposite of God. Good, evil, done.
I think they're confusing demon with gremlin just to cause mischief. And we're feeding them after midnight.
What does the demon get out of this?
It's the satisfaction of chaos.
You're applying a level of analysis that I don't think believers
ever apply. I know.
Apply.
This is when I was 5, and I'm asking my parents to explain these things, and when they're trying to explain their religion to me, and they can't answer the questions of a 5-year-old, I still have the same unanswered questions. What the hell is the demon getting out of it?
Well, it's
What
wanting
does the
to have
demon want?
an answer rather than wanting to have understanding.
So how many demons are there, and what do they do when they can't do damage?
Yeah, and why and how did they trick all the angels into trying to dance on the head of a pin together? Like, wouldn't that occupy all the angels' time? Why would they be dancing? I don't know. It's an interesting question. It's just like, the demons are determined to oppose the work of God. I mean, in my mind, if you look at this from the perspective of here's a person that will believe anything that God tells them, and you listen to basically God's story about like, there's these forces in the world and they're all against me, man. And like, no, I totally made them because I'm the best and they're working against me. It's like this a person who's self-aggrandizing and has a persecution complex.
You know what you ought to do with a studio like this?
Cast demons out?
Bring them in. Bring some in. So what I would suggest that you do, you need to have an interfaith group, like get a Christian and a Sikh and a Hindu and a Muslim. And first they have to nominate.
That sounds like a joke.
They have to nominate who's going to represent them.
Okay.
Right. So you have the Sunni and the Shia. They have to have a conference together to decide which one is going to represent both. Right. And then you get Catholic and Protestant and Jehovah's Witness and Mormon, and they all have to get together and pick out one representative to represent them all the Christian collection. Right. And then you get that one here. He represents all of Christianity. And then the one remaining Muslim, the one remaining Christian, Hindu, and Sikh, they get to argue over which is the true religion.
That'd be good. I would moderate that discussion. I would moderate a discussion amongst just like...
And whoever wins the debate is the right religion, because that's the way a belief system works.
Yeah. I would moderate a discussion between 4 fundamentalists that wanted to talk about exactly what the role of demons were in the world, just so that I could hear the conversation. Because
Can we get a demon in here? Because I would rather hear directly rather than through the representation.
Yeah. All of in all of the Hollywood movies that seem to, display demon possession in precisely the way that he's talking about, which kind of contradicts, like, why would demons out themselves as being real? The demons possess people and then talk and say things like, I'm possessed by Satan and Satan wants this. Like, why don't we ever hear from the demons?
There is no Dana, only Zool.
We could get an angel in here, too, although, again, that evokes Christopher Walken.
Angels are boring, and that's the thing. Demons are cool.
It depends on which kind of angel.
Demons are cool.
Yeah.
Demons are cool.
Would you have...
Especially when they turn good.
I mean, wasn't it Christopher Walken's demon, the angel?
Gabriel.
Was
The prophecy.
Yeah. His was a lot better than what was a Saturday Night Fever guy, the Scientology kid. What was it? John Travolta. John Travolta's version of Michael. His angel was boring. Mm-hmm. Gabriel's was much more interesting.
I don't know.
Although the ones on Dogma could compete with that.
I was just going to say.
Evidently, there are several movies that I need to watch.
They got kicked out of heaven because Ben Affleck gave God the finger.
So let me clarify this. Which movie are you talking about?
Dogma.
Dogma? Okay, so what happens in this film? What is this?
Oh gosh. Let me
rule. It completely impartial. I have no information. Therefore, I'm the best judge.
That gave me another idea. You could bring in everybody that played Batman in the last 20 years in a major motion picture and have them debate over which is the true religion. It'd be equally valid.
the true religion. I was expecting Batman there. Yeah.
With that, and then we can also bring in a demon person because then we need a seance to bring back what's his name?
What's his name? We can't say his name.
Okay.
Okay. Well, all right.
Were we here to talk about a clip?
Yes, we were. So we were talking about demonic forces in the media and the news media and in Washington. And
I honestly think that the discussion that we've had in the little intermittent snippets is more consideration than he's given to his belief system over his life.
Yes.
Probably. I mean, he's certainly it's certainly more critical consideration. I think he's spent a lot of time reading the Bible and finding ways that...
Well, when they read the Bible, they don't actually read the Bible. They read between the lines, and then they don't read the lines. They read the interpretations of what it doesn't say and ignore what it does say.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. But just to quickly address the point that he was trying to raise in the clip, actually, where he's like, oh, there's demonic forces at work in the media and at
How
Washington.
do we know that?
And well, because society is changing in a way that doesn't comport with his religion. Anything that doesn't comport with his religion that affects things is demonic. Therefore,
what
society is demonic.
Ever did comport with his religion?
None.
Okay,
because
so
this is a world
how do we
not
measure
of God.
whether there's definitely demonic forces? How do we identify whether a force is demonic? And if there's more now than there used to be, how do we know either one?
Why would there be more now than there used to be?
I'm used to these arguments, like from creationists, where it talks about, or they talk about how it takes more information to make a bird than it does a dinosaur. Well, in order to say that, you'd have to know how much information it takes to make a dinosaur and how much information it would have to take to make a bird. You have to know both of these numbers. What are they?
Yeah, how do you quantify that?
Yeah,
they can't. They don't want to.
How do you quantify?
They don't know. They
don't have a measurement. They don't have a metric.
They have not critically studied information theory in order to understand this. They've looked for answers because they don't want understanding. They're seeking answers, not,
This is not about any revelation of any spiritual truth. Truth has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm willing to take Tommy's side, and I think demons are at Fox News.
I think they're possessed by the force of their producers to some degree. All right, so let's see. I think we should move on to our last clip.
Oh.
Well, there's an election coming up, 2020. Do we have any signs of possession that we should be looking for? Because I know a ton of people want to get in there and be in charge, sit in the big chair and tell everybody how it is. Is there anything we should be looking for to watch out for?
You mean as far as demonic stuff goes?
Yes, sir.
I really couldn't answer that for you. I do think they're all demon possessed. Because here's why I think these people are demon possessed. All right. For example, when it comes to your LGBT crowd, these people, the damage that they're doing to themselves is all over them. You see these freak shows that are just all pierced up, tattooed up. These people are just, they've abused themselves so bad. It's real easy to imagine these people doing evil. You don't usually see that kind of stuff on your nice, normal, nice-looking, normal-looking people. All right? But yet, we've got these people in Congress that look completely normal. They don't look like they abuse themselves. They don't look like they're, practicing witchcraft in a back room somewhere. Yet, these people who are so nice, smiley, and normal-looking are passing bills allowing doctors to rip babies out of a mother's womb. That is unthinkable. That
Wasn't
a
that
leader,
Second Kings?
that any president or any judge.
Yes.
These judges, the fact that they would make these decisions allowing that type of thing to take place for moms to kill innocent babies,
That's numbers 5.
That is more demonic than anything that I can imagine. And these people do it straight-faced. They do it with smiles. They do it without batting an eye.
Or smiles,
Listen,
which is it?
I could not do that. I mean, said I can't even, while I'm for the death penalty, I can't imagine being the one to ever administer the death penalty. I don't want to see anybody hurt. I understand sometimes that's got to be done, and somebody's got to do it, but I don't want to be the one to do it. I don't want to hurt people.
It doesn't have to be done.
I don't like seeing people in
Nobody
pain.
cares,
And, you take the biggest scumbag out there, I would cringe to, see somebody stick scissors in the back of his head and suck his brains out and watch him twitching on the floor. Yet when there's doctors out there and there are judges making it legal to do that to babies, that is just unimaginable in my book. And you're going to have a hard time convincing me that every single monster that sits on that Supreme Court that, votes in favor of abortion is not some demon-possessed pile of garbage, and everyone in Congress that votes for that stuff is not some demon-possessed sick individual. That is just beyond.
Okay, so anybody who has a more advanced position than he does
you want to
is
look besides demon possession, when these people are promoting abortion,
Pro-life.
I think that's a real good sign, with a smile on their face. When you see them getting up and talking about in LGBTE Pride Month, how we need to start helping decriminalize homosexuality in other countries like Donald Trump just did, I say that guy's got a devil in him. That he would mess with other countries and try to influence their laws as president, just
Donald
to
Trump
score
has a demon
some
in him?
political points with the sickest people on earth.
Probably
that guy's a devil too. So right there, that's a good sign. Somebody needs to go perform an exorcism on that guy.
I could see 3 of them standing on each other's shoulders in one suit.
I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you have the last word if you have anything else you'd like to say.
Well, I just appreciate you giving me an opportunity to answer some of these things. So any of the other atheist groups that are out there, I'm always glad to talk to people, but I don't talk to homos and I don't talk to people with filthy mouths, and which is a lot of the atheists that are going after me right now. I have no respect for people like that. But, some people are just wrong when it comes to certain things. I'm always glad to talk with them and try to help them out. So I appreciate you. I don't know you. I've not watched your stuff, but you definitely seem polite and like you're trying to have an honest conversation. And so I'm always glad to talk with people like that. But people who act like sick, vile dogs, they can go jump in a lake for all I care. So.
Okay.
Yay!
I hear you. Respect is a thing that we should cultivate because we're human beings. We have to live on this planet together. We are not going to agree on everything, but it's fine. That is the course of life. Through eons, we have not all agreed. But what is important is that we can come to an understanding, listen to each other, and try to forge ahead in the best way we can.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I appreciate it, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor. You have a great day.
You too.
So,
bye-bye.
Bye.
Is there anybody demon possessed? I don't know how to tell that. Well, no, okay. Is there? So you can't make the statement. There's no way to tell. There's no way to know. There's no way to measure. There's no indication you can give. There's nothing consistent. It's anybody that disagrees with your opinion because they know you do.
And if you think they're demon possessed, you aren't going to waste your time talking to them.
Well, no.
Because then you might learn something.
I don't know that he said he wouldn't talk to
filthy.
Well, he doesn't want to talk to people that act like filthy, vile dogs, which I think he just means
homos, in his own words.
Well, no, he was talking about, in that sentence, he was talking about people that are swearing because he was talking about groups. He doesn't talk to in his words, homos because they're homos. But I mean,
he does.
Honestly,
I don't mean to disagree with you, but
I got bleeped by an NIFB Christian for saying, "Gosh darn it, to heck."
You got bleeped.
I don't mean to disagree
in one
with
of their
you,
videos or something.
But in the past episodes, he did say that he does not engage with homosexuals or homos.
I bet he does.
He said that just now. No. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk to, in his words, homos. He said that just like 5 seconds ago. But when he said people that act like vile dogs, he was talking about people that are swearing. Because we're reprobates, which is worse than a dog, presumably. Because, all dogs go to heaven or whatever.
You just have no self-control because I didn't say any swear words.
Fuck.
I didn't swear.
You filthy-mouthed fucker.
Hey, I am a vile dog, apparently, and a reprobate. So, yeah, no, there isn't consistency. It's basically, it's not about forming a logical system or gaining an understanding or having
there's no way to show that there's any truth or accuracy to anything he says.
No.
Ever.
There's no, I hear no desire for that. What I hear is a desire for when there is a question or an idea to have an answer to it.
And the answer is just whatever he makes up. In science, you might have a number of potential explanations, but you don't have an answer until you can show one that shows some probability of being correct, or that shows some truth to it. Now, if it actually does explain things and we can show that there's a verifiable truth there, that qualifies as an explanation.
Yeah.
The only desire that I really got from him was a desire to see pain and infliction brought upon a special group of people because they didn't believe or were contrary to his beliefs, and that visitation of pain and suffering on those people would be a validation of a God that's been missing in action for 2,000 years.
Yeah, I also got to say that, there was a time when I was raised to believe in the death penalty. And I did believe in the death penalty because I was raised by a bunch of bigots. And it was a harsh thing for me to evaluate that at one point, to pick Susan Smith, right? This woman who kills both of her children. She locks them in a car, drives the car into a river, watches them pleading, beating on the window to have her rescue them, and she watches them drown so that she can go off and have her free life as a single woman again. And I was frustrated. Why are we still serving this woman food? Why didn't we execute her? But at that point in my life, I start trying to come up with more humane ways of executing prisoners. And every more humane way that I could suggest, somebody said was barbaric. And I thought, well, if the lethal injection, you have to sterilize the needle for a lethal injection, does that make any sense? Trust me, I'm not going to get an infection in this amount of time. Well, what happens if you're running the electric bulb, and sometimes people survive. They have to go through numerous rounds of that. I'm like, wouldn't it be easier? Shotgun blast, double barrels, back of the head. Quick, right? Merciful. Oh. What if you had a 16-ton weight? Stamp, right? You don't even feel that, right? Boom, you're done, right? Yeah. Well, every one of these things, as merciful, as instantaneous, as whatever, then they become so merciful that they're not even a form of punishment anymore, yet people are still saying that they're barbaric. And so that it was at this point that I start realizing that if I could make it merciful, it wouldn't be a punishment. What is the real punishment? Lock me up forever. Make me live through that. That's a punishment. Killing me is my way out, especially if I think that my magic imaginary friend has already forgiven me because he knows all my bullshit excuses. And, of course, he agrees with everything I think. He knows fully why I was justified in what I did. And so he's going to release me as soon as I'm gone from this body. He's going to reward me for what I did. So that's not a punishment either.
No.
Man.
So I eventually gave up on the death penalty and realized that it is wholly barbaric.
Well, that, and I think it's interesting, part of what you said is people saying that, killing people in this way is barbaric, killing people in that way is barbaric, it should be more humane, it should be more humane. And it's mostly that they have to live with the fact that they, are citizens of a country that does that.
Well, there's another way that
would be the reason why the stamp that's instantaneous.
Yeah, there was another idea. I had another idea that I thought was nice. Thunderdome.
One man enter, one man leave.
No, 2 men enter, 1 man leave. And so the thing is that the winner wins a purse for his victim or the victim's next of kin, which prompts a sort of forgiveness. Come on, man, you hit me harder than that. Yeah, and at the time I came up with this idea, Michael Jackson and Mike Tyson were both up on rape charges. And I thought, now, there would be a match. Imagine what the pay-per-view odds on that event would be.
I think one-sided, but I don't know how well Michael Jackson would be able to dodge.
I have a question for you.
He might be able to moonwalk and do that weird lean thing that he does with his feet.
I have a question for you.
But just think, open mic night.
I have a question for you. Who run Bartertown?
At the same time,
Master Blaster.
You had the Menendez brothers who were up on charges for killing their parents. So I thought, well, this would be great. It's brother against brother. on pay-per-view. See The Last Menendez.
Oh my gosh! So his idea of having public executions on pay-per-view is not original, is what you're saying? Yeah. Oh my god. Well, so actually,
we could do Susan Smith versus that woman that murdered all 5 of her children by drowning them in the bathtub to save them all from Satan. Andrea Yates. We could do that for Mother's Day.
Oof.
So, gives another whole new meaning to sudden death.
So as for the clip,
poor Jamie.
Well,
in Spanish it would be pobrecito.
Pobrecito. Yeah, I used to get told that as a child.
My coffee is out. I need.
Oh yeah, you need more coffee.
Yep. Your go-go juice.
What's the alcohol by volume of that particular coffee?
This is only 12. No, it says 9 here. They must have got the wrong one.
Okay.
You just drank some demons.
Well, it's not spirits, though. I don't know what they called beer, but...
That's the first thing man ever invented.
I think they got, cups first.
Yeah. Beer was the first thing. And they drank it like this.
I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to do some more research. I'm skeptical of your claim here.
The earliest beer was made out of the byproducts of the first attempts at agriculture. They would throw all of their chaff and whatever into the water, right? And then of course it would just putrefy in there. And then when they go to the drinking water is now beer.
Yeah. Well, it was that, but it was actually a sort of important development because it remains potable for a longer period of time than just water. It's easier to carry it, so you could travel further away.
That's why Jesus turned water into wine. And everybody said, well, I've never, all these NIFB people said, I've never touched alcohol. Well, why not? Jesus did.
Yeah. Oh, are they non-drinkers as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And non-smokers?
Well, I don't. It's a mix and match with your fundamentalist religions, right? Sometimes they're different.
Yeah. Well, your body is a temple. You're supposed to treat it like a temple.
Well, what if it's a temple of beer?
The what?
Have orgies in it? Go to the wrong temples.
Yeah, I was going to say, depends on the temple. I'm sure there's a name for a gay club that includes the word temple in it. But
men's temple?
Gay temple? I don't know. All right, so real quick, because we've got one more clip, and
there's more of this?
I mean, sorry, there isn't. This is the last clip. I just mean I'm trying to address what he said more than the fact that he was still talking about demons and smiley pro-life people. But basically, the way that I heard this interview, and I've heard a lot of what he's said, is that all of his motivations break down for him wanting to reduce the amount of suffering in the world. Right? And he doesn't want to be involved in suffering. He doesn't want to cause the suffering. He doesn't want to be around or talk to, in his word, homos, people that he believes are entirely corrupted and seek only to defile. And he wants them to not be alive in the world because then that will stop, them from harming other people. The problem is that he's factually incorrect. I don't seek to defile anything. There's nothing wrong with this. And there's insufficient reason to believe that the King James Version 1611 is the authoritative word of God, or that there is an authoritative word for God. But I think if he was raised in a different environment with the natural predilections that I hear in this interview, he'd be a good humanist. Unfortunately, he's not, because his mind and his upbringing were corrupted by fundamentalist religion, which is why I do what I do.
It was collected, compiled, and edited by men based on mythologies by men, and then the later people who assembled this compilation decided that it wasn't just the stories of men, that it was the Word of God. Whereas if it had been the Word of God, it would have been written completely different. It wouldn't say anything that it does, and it would actually say useful things. It would explain what microorganisms are and why you should wash your hands and why that weird hippie telling you not to wash your hands is full of shit. It would have God completely disavow Jesus.
Yeah. Well, that and the argument is it wouldn't.
You can tell a mountain to do whatever you want it to do. It ain't going to do it.
Well, there's also the argument that it wouldn't be written down. That if there's this God that can communicate to people and is all powerful, that it would just communicate that to the people that need to know it.
Yeah, that's another level of depth. If we have to take a step back. If there was a Bible at all, it wouldn't say what it does. It would say completely different things. Yeah. And it wouldn't be useless stories about prejudice and paranoia. it would be actual useful information. There would be some kind of like brief explanation of the periodic table, you know, like things we could use.
If there was, information passed from God to humans intended for everyone, it wouldn't have come so late in human history and be entirely indistinguishable from a collection of cultural myths of a specific people in the past.
And it wouldn't be full of things that are wrong.
Yeah, and it also wouldn't say that there was a giant flood right in the middle of China's history where China doesn't record it. But
I also think it wouldn't be physical. It would be something imprinted in us that we...
Yeah, it would just be communicated outside of
everybody
paper
has knowledge
and
of God
languages
on their
that
heart.
die.
Right? Everybody has...
It's morality.
Well, they all say that we have knowledge of God imprinted on our heart, except that I never did.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed that day.
And it's not because I love sin either. I'm not even sure what sin is, but I'm pretty sure I don't love sin. But if I did, I can guarantee I'd be a Christian. Because then I would commit all the sin that I want and just be forgiven for it.
Good point.
I mean, that is, if you love to sin, you have every motivation to be more devout outside of when you're sinning.
And
If
you get
you-
to spend all eternity with your murderer, your abuser.
Hey, anyone that
Now, if you love
repents-
truth, on the other hand, then you're not going to believe anything that you can't show that there's some truth to it. You just wouldn't let yourself be fooled into believing something that is not evidently true. And that eliminates Christianity from the list of options, as well as Islam and so forth.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I might try and clip him saying, that guy's got a demon in him, and use it somewhere else as well, though. Just as a phrase. If I ever have Tommy McMurtry's phone number, that's going to be the ringtone. But
There's so many applications I can think of for that guy's got a demon in him. I think I saw one in a gay porn movie once.
Well, I think I saw that. It was called Possession. Possessions 1 and 2.
Oh my
no,
God.
Volume 1 and 2.
so as I was, I don't even know how to. Yeah, I don't know. It's also very.
Pobrecito.
It's also very. His like hatred of Washington is also sort of topical and like cultural to.
It was interesting that he included Trump as having a demon in him, because so many of the evangelicals now think that Trump is sent by God.
Yeah, they're laying on hands.
You know, they want there to be a book of Trump in the Bible. Mm-hmm. It would have to be written by somebody.
Has someone literally said that?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
God,
somebody in the
no.
news within the last 3 days said there should be a book of Trump. We don't know who's going to write it, because Trump didn't even write the book that he wrote.
yeah.
There's also a bunch
He's
of
gonna
Christians that are praying to protect him from the
gonna get-
witchcraft and curses. And
He's going to get Bannon to ghostwrite it for him. We're all going to be doomed.
If he had written the book that he said that he wrote, it would be the Art of the Dell.
It would be chapter 5.
2 Corinthians.
Covfefe,
2 Corinthians walk into a bar.
Covfefe. Yeah. Ugh. All right.
That's
well,
the Aramaic for Trump.
tremendous Corinthians.
these Corinthians,
Believe me.
they are the best. They
big-
don't have demons in them.
They're bigly.
They're not gay.
They're bigly.
They're bigly good.
Like horses with emissions like around.
They have the best words. They have the best words.
All the best words. Wow, it's just okay. So also, he talked about people being pro-life and abortion, and people passing bills to allow doctor, whatever it was. You cited 2 kings and then
I didn't
killing
cite
it.
2 kings.
You said 2 kings for abortion.
I might
and
have
then
cited only 1 king, but certainly not 2.
in the Bible. What was the other one? It's the killing innocent children. You know,
I believe it's 2 Kings. I don't remember the verse, but,
right.
but yeah, what it was.
you can
promoting,
joke about the Bible too. I'm just trying.
It was talking about literally ripping babies out of their pregnant mothers.
And that's
But what we're talking about with abortion is not what anybody would call babies.
Nope.
You know, a fetus is
Other
not
than
what I think
evangelicals.
anybody would call a baby.
evangelicals. Other than.
Well, evangelicals also contradict themselves, because if you have a fertilized embryo and it's in a laboratory, then it doesn't qualify as a life It doesn't qualify as a baby. It has to be an encumbrance and an inconvenience on some, unwed, impoverished mother for it to qualify as a baby. Because if it doesn't ruin her life, then there's no purpose in it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of
laboratory where there's no downside, then it's not a baby. Now that's a bit hypocritical, isn't it? Then they don't have to rip it out. They just throw it back in the trash.
I feel like we should cut to prom night dumpster baby.
Except it wouldn't be a baby. It'd be that big.
Yeah. Oh, but it already looks just like a mini baby, according to them, when it's that. I mean, I don't know how to follow that sentence because it's not mine, it's theirs. But,
If you enlarged it 100 times, it wouldn't be enough to eat on the plate, and nobody would. Okay, it doesn't look like any kind of recognizable thing. It looks like something that went bad.
It's like a tadpole.
Yes. A very lumpy, possibly cancerous tadpole.
I don't know. I've never been pregnant. I've assumed that when evangelicals describe tiny little what look like pencil topper eraser versions of babies and say this is 2 weeks, that they're full of shit. But I don't know.
Oh yeah, you mean that these defenders of the faith have lied to you?
They've certainly said things that are clearly
what a
false.
shocking revelation that these people would have lied. The very people who say what's wrong with lying.
Yeah. Or that value revelation have been undone by a shocking revelation.
Why is it that in every other application of life, if you tell me something stated as a fact, but there's no way you could know that. If you came and told me, if you just turned to me right now and said, hey, your tire's flat. That's it. I get up and I go, the tire's not flat. Am I justified for calling you a liar?
I think so. Yeah. Or you could ask me why I said it, and if I said, no, I just knew it must have been flat and then reinflated before you got there.
Okay, so not only you're lying, but you're full of shit and don't realize that you're lying. You can't lie and not realize that you're lying by being full of shit.
But that's offensive and unacceptable in our society because God told me your tire was flat.
But in every other application, that would be considered a lie, except religion. Religion is the one time that you can lie and it not be called a lie.
Yeah. You don't get to question. But God told me your tire's flat.
And if you don't have faith in that lie.
Yeah, he did. He proved me.
And if you don't have faith in that lie, then you're somehow a lesser person because you don't have faith.
Infidels be gone. I feel like that's the battle cry that should have been the battle cry for Bible Man. But
the same people that we argue with all the time will tell me that I have a faith because I can't prove what I actually can prove. And so that by default, what they can't prove becomes the truth. How?
Well, because they have the answer and you haven't gotten them to question it. So that's it. Like, they don't say, so it must be the truth. They're like, yeah, so why wouldn't I believe it? Because it's not seeking truth. They have their answer. And unless you give them another one, they're not going to change because the only thing they're seeking is an answer and not understanding. I mean, again, it's me responding to rhetorical questions in the middle of this, but that it seems that way. I don't know whether you guys want to touch on the fact that apparently he has a position on international relations because he's offended that Donald Trump would try and influence the laws of another country, which I'm going to avoid going to that because...
Well, then he's not a proper dominionist.
Yeah, you're supposed to if you're a dominionist. Jesus everywhere.
Is the NAFB dominionist?
I don't know. I could go to their...
For those who don't know, Christian dominionism is the doctrine that a Christian should rule the entire world from the Oval Office. Summarized. There's more to it, obviously, but...
That sounds like a sick plot to a horror science fiction movie.
You know what makes great television? People watching Jamie look things up on his computer.
Yeah, it makes fantastic. All right, we had good television a minute ago. I was going to look up whether or not they were dominionists, but okay. Some of them, I think some dominionists might be isolationists. They only care in America. It's America. We only care about America. I don't know.
I was upset as a child when I would hear international news, and the only reason I would ever hear international news is if there was a plane crash in Somalia. If there were 11 Americans. On the that's all I would hear.
Yeah.
So like, why don't we have international news that is actually international news?
Well, because we live in America. I mean,
which means we really ought to have international
Yes.
news more than anybody else, right? I mean, you go to Europe, the Europeans know everything that's going on everywhere. They know more about our politics than we know about our politics.
Or at least,
and they know about their politics too. We don't know that they have politics.
yeah, actually, that was something that happened. I went back and I was watching actually some old stuff that Hitch was on, and it was, he was on the news in the 80s, and they were staying up late so they could hear the results of European elections and talking about, oh, well, it looks like so-and-so's back with a increased conservative majority in Germany. What do you think this is going to mean for the markets? And it was the single most mind-blowing experience I can think of at this specific moment, because, there was a lot of things that I think of when I think of the 80s and I think of politics, and better news coverage wasn't necessarily one of them at all. And also, he was a socialist at the time, and they were just talking to him.
I was raised to be a patriot. I was raised to love my country, and I got a completely wrong, apparently, version of what that meant. That meant that I was supposed to know more about everything else going on in the rest of the world than I was at least supposed to know as much as anybody else did. Right? I didn't realize that Americans aren't supposed to know anything that happens on the other side of the water. Right?
Yeah.
I was upset. I remember being 11 and complaining to my very patriotic family, why are the best watches made in Switzerland? Why is the best beer brewed in Germany? We're America. Why don't we make the best damn watches and beer and cars and everything? Why is the best everything American? That's what the way it should be.
Sorry. Again, it's my response of, someone has asked a question.
It's rhetorical again.
Yeah, it's a rhetorical one. So I don't know whether they're dominionists at all, or if they have any more sophisticated view on international relations.
Well, I don't think they are dominionists. They are completely outside of the track when it comes to if they're going to say that Trump has a demon in them, along with everybody else, then they are not in sync with the rest of the American evangelicals who think that Trump is somehow a godsend. Trump is somehow the talking donkey beneath Balaam.
Yeah, they've said that. They've said that. And God has worked with evangelicals, not the NIFB.
Which is the reason I don't think there should be a book of Trump, is we already have a story about a talking ass in the Bible.
Well, and with that, I think we're coming up on time. But I don't know. Do you have anything else? Well, that's actually the perfect closing. So I think we'll shut it out with that. Thank you for joining us for this special episode of the Atheist Vanguard.
I'd just like to say that this was a pleasure to do this series.
Yes, it has. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for
always
closing
a
us
bucket
out.
of chuckles.
Thank you for closing us out for this very special episode. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah. See you next time.